The U-20 World Cup is finally here, the moment we've all been waiting for. The entire world is watching Japan's U-20 team, and this is Blue Lock's biggest test yet. Ego has staked his whole philosophy on this moment. No safety nets, no do-overs. If this team fails, so does Ego. The starting XI has dropped for the first match against Nigeria. On paper, this team looks cracked. Rin, Chigiri, Bachira, Ryu, along with every single Metavision user Blue Lock has to offer. But with this lineup, there's already some drama. Shidou's missing and Barou is benched. And the formation, yeah, it's kinda weird. And not in some sort of big brain kind of way. It literally looks like Ego might have lost his mind. So what exactly is this lineup supposed to be? And is there an actual genius plan underneath it? And that's what we're gonna find out in this video by going through the defensive structure of this formation and the possible offensive structures. Taking a look at the lineup, we have Gagamaru in net, which is obvious. I mean, anybody who thought Fukaku was getting in at the goalkeeper spot over Gagamaru, I don't know what to say about you. Onto the defense, there will be 3 center backs, which is Aiku, Ryu, and Nico. For the wing backs or fullbacks, you're gonna have Hiori on the left and Chigiri on the right. In the midfield, you'll have Karasu as the CDM, Bachira as left mid, Ryo as right mid, and lastly, for the strikers, you have Isagi and Rin paired up at the top. That makes up a 5-3-2 formation, and if I didn't know any better, I'd say Ego is trying to get himself fired. I mean, a 5-back with a CDM and your entire squad is made up of strikers and offensive-minded players? Yeah, I don't know about this one. Ego really looked at this team and said, how about I make 6 of you guys play defense today? But in all honesty, knowing Ego, there's definitely a reason for running this lineup against Nigeria. Whether it's to counter something about the Nigerian team or something else, Ego can definitely be trusted in this case. But moving on from that, let's actually look at this formation. And in order to do that, there's basically 3 main sections that we have to go over, or more like 2. The first section is going to be how this formation actually defends, which in general is just going to be how the formation is laid out by default, which in this case is just the 5-3-2. The second thing would actually be the formation and the tactics this formation uses when attacking. And lastly, the third thing to go over would typically be how the formation functions in the build-up phase. But seeing as Blue Lock works, the build-up phase actually isn't too important since 90% of the attacks end up being counters. So we can just skip that and just focus on defense and attack. Starting off with the defensive end, looking at this formation, and the first thing we gotta talk about is the elephant in the room, which is Karasu being left completely stranded as the only central midfielder. Now sure, on paper, Ryo and Bachira are listed as midfielders, so a lot of people just put them in the center mid spots in this lineup. But based on how this kind of setup worked before in the series with Manshine's 3-5-2 formation, Bachira and Ryo are likely to actually be operating as wide midfielders. That means, at least initially, this team is built of 5 defenders, 1 central midfielder, and practically 4 forwards. So in real life, this formation would get absolutely cooked. But here's where things get interesting. Formations aren't static. Players don't stand around like chess pieces. And this setup relies heavily on in-game movement and role shifts. You can expect players like Bachira and Ryo, the wide midfielders, to drift in more centrally on defense to help Karasu avoid getting completely destroyed by the opposing team's midfield. Another option is that if you've been paying attention to the series, you'll know that Rin and Isagi are 2 of the most defensively active forwards in Blue Lock. That means out of possession, this lineup actually ends up being one of Blue Lock's strongest defensive teams, with Isagi and Rin as your best pressing forwards, paired up with a grand total of 6 Metavision users. And we all know that Metavision users, generally speaking, tend to be the better defenders compared to Predator Eye users or users with no special eyes, with the exception of Rin, who's able to use his Predator Eye for defensive man marking. But that covers the defensive side of this formation. What about the offense? Since we don't know exactly what Ego's thinking, it is a little bit difficult to assume how this formation will attack. Generally speaking, there's going to be about 3 different ways for this formation to go about attacking. And of course, these 3 ways of attacking could also be combined to create even more ways of attacking, as soccer is quite the fluid sport and not static when it comes to positions. For the first possible attacking formation Blue Lock could use, formation ends up being a 3-2-3-2, with the key players to make this happen being Hiori, Ryo, and Chigiri. And first up, we'll talk about Hiori. In this attacking tactic, Hiori isn't playing like your traditional left back or wing back. He's playing inverted. Instead of pushing high and wide or hugging the sideline, Hiori steps inwards, forming a double pivot alongside Karasu in the midfield. That instantly fixes one of the biggest issues in this setup, the central stability. What started as a chaotic one-man midfield becomes a clean two-man engine room. And with Hiori's metavision, calm passing, and smooth dribbling, he might actually be perfect for this role. Now, if you're not familiar with some football tactics, a double pivot just means you've got two central midfielders or central defensive midfielders sitting deeper behind the attack, helping control the tempo, recycle possession, and block transitions. But aside from that, here's something that a lot of people are missing. This is actually the first time Hiori is being played more realistically. Hiori is a left-footed player, which means him playing on the left side finally makes sense. Even inverted fullbacks still operate best on their dominant side, since they need to be comfortable receiving the ball and playing inside passes with their strong foot. Putting Hiori on the right side only works because of how elite Hiori is at the outside foot passes, also known as trivela passes. While some fans are confused to see him on the left, it's actually where he belongs. In the Blue Lock matches before, we saw Hiori mostly get played on the right, which technically would limit his control and ability to play naturally. Here on the left, he has better angles, smoother body orientation, and more confidence when shifting central. The next important player to talk about is Rayo. Technically the right mid, but functionally he will probably operate as a team's central attacking midfielder. Rayo's versatility is a cheat code. Good passing, strong dribbling, sharp shooting. He becomes the connective tissue between the midfield and the attack. So now you've got this triangle between Hiori, Karasu, and Rayo, and suddenly the midfield isn't a disaster, it's actually very dangerous. A midfield trio of triple metavision users is not something an opposing team would want to run into. But with Rayo moving on into the inside, you're missing someone on the right flank, and that's where Chigiri steps up. Unlike your typical fullback, Chigiri is not going to be defending deep. He's going to be pushing high, almost like a right winger. His elite pace and improved stamina will let him cover the entire flank, overlapping Rayo and constantly threatening in behind. And yeah, the first thing a lot of people might mention is what happens to his Panther snipe shot. We all watched him master that move on the left wing during the NEL, cutting inside onto his stronger right foot and curling in shots like he's the right-footed Robin. So what exactly is Chigiri doing on the right side of the field? Well, here's the thing. As a right-footed player, Chigiri is actually supposed to be on the right side of the field defensively. Fullbacks and wingbacks usually play on their dominant foot side because it's better for tackling, passing, and overlapping runs. So in terms of real football logic, this makes more sense, even if it does come to the cost of his classic Panther snipe angle. But honestly, here's a stretch I'm about to make. I don't think this is the end of Chigiri's Panther snipe shot. In fact, I think it's the start of something new. What if Chigiri's developing a new Panther snipe, which is a Trivela Panther snipe? Just like Kaiser's Kaiser Impact Magnus, the shot curves outward off of the outside of his boot. Chigiri might be learning to bend it from the right, an outside foot finesse that mimics the curve of his shot from the left side of the field. But hey, that's just speculation. There's literally zero evidence that anything like that will ever happen. So honestly, it's probably better you ignore I said that. Now that we covered the gap on the right side of the field, there's one more layer to add onto this formation. It's nothing big, but it's just the fact that Bachira, although listed as a left midfielder, will technically be playing as more of a left winger. Since Rayo is playing more centrally, that gives Bachira more room on the left side to play as a more natural winger, giving him more space to use his crazy dribble moves to take on defenders in a 1v1 situation. So that's it for the first attacking formation, and we can now move on to the second one. This attacking formation is actually what we're most likely to see happen in the game versus Nigeria, based on how Blue Lock is set up. This attacking formation lines up as a 3-1-4-2, and there isn't anybody in this formation taking on an unusual role or position when compared to where they originally start. This formation is essentially the 5-3-2 that Blue Lock starts in, except both wingbacks, being Chigiri and Hiori, will both push up high onto the pitch when in possession. That means they'll be playing alongside Bachira and Rayo in possession of the ball, which is where you get the 4 in the 3-1-4-2. Generally speaking, you'd only get into this formation after you've made it past the halfway point, because having only one center midfielder, which is Karasu, they can easily get overran by the opponent's team's midfield. So generally, you only see this in heavy counterattacking teams or teams that have already been set up on the offense. But yeah, in the 3-1-4-2, it's very good because you're essentially committing 6 total players forward and leaving only 4 on defense, allowing you to have many number advantages against the opponent's side. For example, when you're attacking from the right side, you're going to have the right striker, the right midfielder, and the right wing back. all high up on the right side of the field, which will allow them to easily overrun the left fullback of the opponent team and the left center back. So in the end, this is a very valid attacking formation, with honestly the only concern being your single center defensive midfielder, which is Karasu, so not too much to worry about when it comes to Bullock and their counter-attacking formation. The last attacking tactics to go over is similar to the first one I shared, where we have Hiori inverting in as a defensive midfielder to play alongside Karasu. It also has the same idea with Chigiri, as he will be pushing up high as a right winger when in possession of the ball. The key difference that separates this tactic compared to the first one I shared is actually the strikers. As we know, both Rin and Isagi are strikers that are actually very good on the ball. Isagi is very good at link-up play, and Rin is generally just very good at dribbling. So both of them are able to drop back and participate in build-up play. That fact is what allows this new formation I'm about to show work. Because unlike the first formation, where we have Ryo shifting over a little bit to the left to act as the attacking midfielder, instead, you'll have either Isagi or Rin dropping back into that center attacking midfield position. And so you may be wondering, if Rin and Isagi are going to be dropping back, obviously one at a time, where does Ryo go? Well, Ryo actually stays exactly where he originally is, which is on the right side in the half space. Ryo playing in this area allows him and Chigiri to play next to each other and actually creates a 2v1 situation against the opposing team's left back. So these are the most likely attacking tactics Bullock had used in their current formation, with the 3-2-3-2 with Hiori playing as an inverted fullback and Hiori playing as the attacking fullback, the more likely 3-1-4-2 high counter-attacking team setup. And lastly, the 3-2-4-1 with Hiori playing as the inverted fullback and the overload on the right hand side with Ryo and Chigiri playing next to each other. Pair those up with the highly defensive 5-3-2 and you have Eagles formation actually making a lot of sense with crazy amount of potential, both attacking and defensively. But that about wraps up this video. You guys let me know in the comments which one of the 3 attacking tactics you guys prefer, or any other attacking tactics you came up with yourself. And if you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe, because Bullock tactical videos is what I do here.